I want to bring in John Lott, president of the Crime Prevention Research Center. He has a new piece out over at The Federalist. It's called DOJ Lawsuits Against Gun Control Policies, Especially Protect the Weak. Be sure to check it out. It's a fascinating. Every time I talk to John and whenever I read one of his pieces, I'm always able to learn several things that I did not know before. So, John, thanks so much for writing the piece. Maybe we can start.
Great to talk to you.
Yeah, it's always great to talk to you. Maybe we could start conceptually here at the high levels. What's the DOJ trying to accomplish here?
Right. Well, under Harmy Dillon for the Civil Rights Division, they've set up part of that to go and deal with different types of gun control laws in the country. Some former people at the Department of Justice are very upset, saying that this doesn't fit into kind of the traditional role for the Civil Rights Division to go and protect kind of the vulnerable, the poor, minorities, women. And the point of my piece was to say those are the very types of people that these gun control laws discriminate against. They make it costly for people to be able to get guns, which hurts poor individuals who want to go and protect themselves. And if you look at these laws, there's many parts of these laws that particularly discriminate against minorities and women.
Yeah, you lay out the numbers on this in the piece, and it's really shocking. Let me start with let's talk about background checks, for example, because this is one of those things we're always told it's so super popular. No one objects to them at all. And, at the high level, you can kind of say, okay, well, you want to make sure you're not giving away a gun to a hardened criminal or something. But that is not the actual reality of this process. Can you walk us through this?
Right. Since 1998, there have been about 5.1 million people that have been not denied being able to go and purchase guns because of background checks. And we will frequently hear that described as 5.1 million dangerous or prohibited people that have been stopped from buying guns. So that's simply false. What they should say is that there have been 5.1 million initial denials, and that virtually all of those, something actually around 99 plus, maybe 99.9% of those, are mistakes. It's one thing to stop a felon from buying a gun. It's another thing to stop somebody simply because they have a roughly phonetically similar name and similar birthday to a prohibited person. And the thing is, people tend to have names similar to others in their racial groups. Hispanics have names similar to other blacks. Other Hispanics, blacks tend to have names similar to other blacks. And the thing is, when you go and you buy a gun, you think they're using all the information you're putting down there. You think you're putting down the exact name, your address, your birthday, your eye color, your race, your social security number. But that's not what they're doing. And they're almost always just using roughly phonetically similar names and similar birthdays. And the problem is that people across different groups have different levels of people who are prohibited from buying guns. So, for example, for black males, you're talking about 33% or so of black males are felons. For Hispanic males, you're talking about 18% are felons. For whites, you're talking about 6% or so, and for Asians, less than 2%. And so the problem is that when you have these mistakes, they're going to be primarily involving law-abiding, good Black and Hispanic males who simply have names that are roughly similar to Black and Hispanic males who are prohibited from being able to go and buy guns. And so the vast majority of the mistakes, through no fault of their own, are stopping law-abiding, good Black and Hispanic males from being able to go and buy guns. Now, you can go and appeal, but you're talking about something that costs like $3,000 on up. So basically, low and middle income, and maybe even higher, Black and Hispanic males, they may want to have a gun. They may feel it's necessary for protection, but do they have an extra $3,000 or more that they want to go and spend on trying to fix a mistake that's not anything due to anything that they've done?
It's really incredible, and you don't necessarily think of the breakdowns that way, but this is how it plays out in real life. One example from your piece in 2022, NICS, this is the background check, issued 131,865 denials. Yet prosecutors indicted only 18 people. As John points out, that's 0.014%. This is incredible. I mean, this is just like, it seems to be just a way to blanket deny tons and tons of people their constitutional rights.
Right. Look, the thing is, you go and you talk to people in the enforcement division, and I've worked in the Department of Justice. And the thing is, you say, how can you have 130,000 denials, but only 18 prosecutions? And people will tell you, and I've talked to people for decades that have been involved in the enforcement process. They say, well, we'd love to go after them if they were real cases, but they're not real cases. And that goes all the way back. Somebody I know, Reagan Dunn, who was the first head of Project Safe Neighborhoods back over 20 years ago. He would have told you the same thing back at that point. One of the ironies is when you have a Democratic president, Republicans will attack them for not enforcing gun control laws. And the number one exhibit is the fact that they're not prosecuting these denials. When you have a Republican president, Democrats will attack them for not in doing this. When Jeff Sessions was appointed to be the Attorney General, one of the things that he wanted to do was really change the enforcement here. Well, it didn't change the number of enforcement that was there. They still had this huge gap between the number of denials and the number of people they prosecuted or convicted. And, as you say, look, if private companies did background checks in the same way that the federal government does, they'd be sued out of existence. If they had an error rate that was 100th the error rate that the federal government has, they'd be sued out of existence under federal law. You go to a private employer and you say, I think you ought to look at roughly phonetically similar names and similar birthdays to go and do background checks. They're going to look at you like you're from Mars. and because they know that you're just going to have all sorts of errors that are going to be there, and they know that it's going to be overwhelmingly discriminating against certain groups of people, particularly Black and Hispanic males.
It's fascinating and problem. We've been using this term errors, which I think, can cover a lot of this stuff. I don't know that it explains what's going on in Los Angeles, though. You point this out in the piece as well. I mean, Los Angeles seems to be really just abusing gun control laws to make sure nobody outside of, elite private security gets a gun. Can you take me through that situation? Because this is unbelievable.
Right. Well, a few years ago, we got a hold of a list of all the concealed carry permit holders in Los Angeles County. They have like less than 300 permit holders for a county which has like 8.5 million adults in it. So they're not giving out very many permits. And we could go through and look at the list. And basically what you find is that it's individuals who would give large amounts of money to the sheriff's reelection campaign that was there, overwhelmingly very politically connected, very wealthy men, basically. You break it down, only about 7% of the permit holders were women. Nationwide, we collect the data every year. About 30% of permit holders nationwide are women, but only 7% in Los Angeles County. Blacks made up only about 5% of concealed carry permit holders. Their share of the population in Los Angeles County is like 12%. Nationwide, blacks make up about 13% of concealed carry permit holders, so about their share of the population. And Hispanics only made up about 6% of the permit holders in Los Angeles County, even though they make up 54% of the population in Los Angeles County. Now, is it just that women and blacks and Hispanics in Los Angeles just don't face crimes committed against them like they do in the rest of the country? not really believable. I mean, women get stalked and threatened in Los Angeles County just as they do in the rest of the country. The difference is that in California at the time, before the Bruin decision, you had to go to some local public official, the sheriff in this case for the county as a whole, and provide what the sheriff's office regarded as a good reason for them to go and give you a concealed carry permit. And basically, what happened was the only people that they thought had quote for being able to go and protect themselves were these politically connected individuals, and not your typical woman. You couldn't simply say, if you were a poor black or whatever, that you lived in a very dangerous part of town there, and and you were worried about your safety. That wouldn't be a good reason. And they want people that and these are basically Democrats who are making these decisions. And the bizarre thing is Democrats are claiming that they care about women, that they care about the poor, that they care about minorities, and yet those are the very people that they don't think had good reasons for being able to go and have a gun to protect themselves. I'll give you one other related example comparing two states. If you compare Illinois with Indiana, Illinois, about 4% of the adult population is a concealed carry permit. In Indiana, it's about 23%. That's a pretty huge difference there. Why the difference? Well, it's pretty easy to explain. In Illinois, it costs about $450 to go through the process to get a concealed carry permit. In Indiana, it costs zero to get the permit. You don't even have to pay for the background check. You make it a lot more costly, a lot fewer people get permits. But it's more than that. It also changes the composition of people who go and get permits. In Illinois, the type of person who gets a permit are basically wealthy individuals who live in the suburbs. In Indiana, it's much more heavily concentrated in those zip codes, which are low income, heavily minority zip codes where crimes are occurring. Now, if you want to reduce crime by letting people be able to go and carry permanent concealed handguns, you got to have it so that the people who are the most likely victims of violent crime, who are the ones who are carrying. You could have 100% of the people carrying in places where there's no crime that's already occurring. You're not going to have a real impact on crime. You're not going to make people safer than they otherwise would have been. You have to make it so that the people who are the most likely victims of violent crime, and that overwhelmingly tends to be poor blacks who live in high crime urban areas, but you're making it $450. Up until recently, there were no places to go and train, to go and get your permits, to go through the process in Chicago. You'd have to travel well outside the city. Illinois had also banned people being able to take even permitted concealed handguns on public transportation. Who do you think uses public transportation? It's not very wealthy, politically connected individuals that are there. So it's kind of like you'd have to have 16 hours of training. That requires either 4 days for 4 hours each or 2 days for 8 hours each. So if you're a poor individual and you don't have a car, you can't take public transportation. You have to borrow somebody's car to go and travel well outside the city. It's kind of like they went through everything. High cost, making it very difficult for you to go through the approval process that's there, that you can't even use it if you have to take public transportation and stuff. So that means not only can't you have it on public transportation, but you're disarmed going to and from the public transportation that's there. And so, Democrats claim that they care about the poor, that they care about minorities and stuff. But, and I'll give you one final example since you live in Texas. A few years ago, when they were reducing the permit fees for concealed carry from $140 down to $40, all the Republicans voted for reducing the fees, and all but one of the Democrats voted against it. I mean, it passed because Republicans control the state legislature there. But, here you have a situation where, who do they think they're stopping? from being able to go and get permits. I mean, Democrats are upset if you talk about even free voter IDs because they think that that imposes too much of a burden on low income individuals. And yet, they want to go and have a $140 fee plus all the training costs and other things that they had. Who do they think they're preventing from being able to go and protect themselves?
Yeah.
It's basically the individuals who benefit the most from having the option to protect themselves.
It's quite clear what they're doing here. And just to shine one more spotlight on that number that you mentioned a little while ago in Los Angeles, 54% of the residents are Hispanic in the county, and only 6% have these permits. It's 1/9. I mean, this seems to be any other liberal cause. They would say it's disproportionately affecting minorities, but in this one, I guess that's not the plan. John Lott, just a great piece, president of the Crime Prevention Research Center. Be sure to check out his new piece over at The Federalist. It's DOJ lawsuits against gun control policies, especially protect the weak. So be sure to check it out. We'll post it on our Twitter as well. John, really appreciate all the work you've done in this area, and thanks so much for coming back on and talking to us about this.
Well, thanks for being there, Stu. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.